Hello everyone. I wanted to make this video talking a little bit about technique of our hands, the left and the right hand. This is specifically for grades 3, 4, and 5, um, especially because you guys have had some experience playing already. There's a few common things that I've been seeing that I want to talk about. And since some of you are in person and I can see this a little bit better, and some of you are online and I can't quite see what you're doing all the time, especially when, cameras aren't working, the devices aren't always great. So I wanted to make this video and kind of talk a little bit about this, some of the things that I've been seeing, and hopefully you guys can all address and try to practice on your own. So I'm gonna start off with the right hand, the one that's sort of plucking. And we're going to talk just about, I'm going to relate this to the file that we usually start our class off with, which is the one that's called strings 1, 2, and 3. It's just a little scale exercise. It's really good for just getting the fingers to move. Nice little warm up to get us going. So I'm going to talk a little bit about hand shape, trying to get the fingers to curve naturally and not sort of do too much other motions, more or less. So we're going to keep the thumb on the 6th string. Make sure it doesn't go underneath. We don't want to do any of this or anything like that. The idea with the thumb being here is that it keeps my hand nice and stable and it stops it from bouncing up and down. So if I keep my thumb just relaxed gently on this 6th string, it's pointing parallel to the 6th string, so it's pointing in the same direction. I don't want it to point down. I don't want to do anything like this with my wrist. I'm going to keep my wrist nice and straight and just keep this nice and gently resting on string 6. And we're going to talk about index and middle, which, in our classes, we've been talking about getting the little stick figure to walk on these different strings. And so in terms of the hand position, I've got my I've got my thumb on the 6th string, and index finger and middle finger. I'm going to start on the 3rd string because that's where that file starts with that G. And one of the things that I've been seeing a lot of, which is what I want to talk about, is sort of, again, the hand position. We want the wrist to be as straight as possible, and we don't want it to come down on the instrument. I see a lot of times people resting it like this, but it's actually very hard to move the fingers this way because it constricts the wrist, all the tendons and everything that get the fingers to move. So if I get my wrist off of the instrument, I get a much better curve and more space between my hand and the strings. That allows me to much more easily pluck these strings. Whereas if I do this, I have to work a lot harder, and I get into this sort of, strange shapes with my hand, and it's not quite so easy to press. So we want to make this feel as natural as possible, staying off the instrument, just using the fingertips on the strings, and just getting our stick figure to walk nice and gently. It doesn't have to be heavy, it doesn't have to be hard, nice and relaxed, right? Whether we're on the 3rd string, or the 2nd string, or the 1st string, it's still the same. And we don't want the fingers to straighten out too much. We want to keep a nice curve again, so is that when we move the fingers from this part, from this knuckle, that we have nice space, we can reach the strings easily, and we're, again, not trying too hard. We want to make this as easy as possible. So getting the hand off the instrument, nice curve touching the strings, and really just gently plucking these strings. So let's talk about the left hand a little bit, and one of the other things that I see. In terms of the thumb placement, we don't really want the thumb to be up here. Hopefully, the idea really is to not see the thumb. We want the thumb to be in the back of the neck here. And if I was to do this like this, you can see that my thumb is behind fret number 2, or at least sort of somewhere close to fret number 2. That's the ideal place for the thumb, so that I can reach all of these notes. The reason for getting the thumb to come back here as opposed to being up here is the other thing that I want. We talked about space with the right hand, keeping space from the strings. I also want this with my left hand. I I see this a lot with the students where the wrist comes underneath like this. And again, it makes it very difficult to move these fingers around. So actually what we want is we want this curve to come out this way. I'm going to get more space between my hand and the bottom of the guitar, and I'm going to use my fingers nice and curved to press down on these frets. So I don't want to grip it so much like this and then try to get my fingers to be in here. That bent wrist, again, that's not going to work too well. So we want that to come out. We want to get more space between the hand and the bottom of the guitar. And again, it frees up our fingers to kind of move around. And this becomes important because when we do strings 1, 2, and 3, this is sort of the other thing that I have been seeing, where a lot of you might be used to just using your index finger for every single one of these notes. And the goal with this file as well is to hopefully get some of you to change this, where we're going to assign, at least for right now, we might break this rule later on, but for right now, we're going to think of this that this is finger 1, this is finger 2, and this is finger 3. If I'm going to press down on fret 1, like I do for F or C, I will use finger 1. But if I'm going to press down on fret 2, like I do for A, I'm going to use my middle finger, which is finger number 2. And then if I'm going to press down on the 3rd fret, which I would for D and G, then I want to use my 3rd finger. And that way I'm not always shifting around so much with one finger, that I can get these other fingers involved. It helps to build some independence with the fingers and get to these notes a little bit easier without having to shift too much. So again, more space at the bottom, nice curve, pressing with the fingertip, getting nice and close to the fret. That's another thing, you know, sometimes we get too far over here. Oops, wrong string. And we get that little buzz sound. So if I get a little bit closer, it tends to make that buzz sort of go away. And so, again, so to kind of play this, get my right hand off the instrument, my wrist is off the guitar. I'm going to get my hand in position. The first note that I'm playing is this G, which is the 3rd string open. The second note is this A, and again, it's the 2nd fret. So I'm going to use my 2nd finger, which is my middle finger over here. And then B, the open string. C, the 1st fret. So with my 1st finger. D, 3rd fret. So I'll use 3rd finger. E is open, so I don't really need to press down anywhere. F is the 1st fret, 1st string, back to my 1st finger, and then G over here. And you can see where my thumb is. You can't see my thumb up here, but you can see that my thumb is kind of close to that 2nd fret. This allows me to reach these notes a lot easier, right? So I'm going to play this little exercise so you can see this, and hopefully you can practice this and then implement this when you learn, basically use these techniques when you practice your other pieces, whatever melodies and whatnot that we're working on from the book. So thumb on the 6th string, gonna use these two guys here, and I'm gonna walk my stick figure. I'm gonna keep my left hand kind of hovering over here in place so that they're ready to play these notes. And each note gets played 4 times, and so I'll play it nice and slow, right? I hope that makes sense. I hope that helps you out with your playing, making things easier, right? Keeping that distance, keeping some space between your hand and the bottom, keeping our fingers over the strings, over the frets, so they just have to come down when we need them to press down, right? Same thing with the right hand, getting the hand off of the instrument, not down here, but getting a little bit off and trying to stay as relaxed as possible.